This week, our topic is the metaverse. And the big plan behind this shift in society and technology is that the bulk of our interactions would move to a virtual reality setting, intermixed with a little augmented reality, too. So that means school classes, several jobs, going to concerts, hanging out with friends, playing games, going to see movies, of course, playing video games, not just like tabletop games or anything like that. All of that could be done from the couch with a headset on. So assuming that Meta successfully produces this new headset that they're promising in the next year that can be worn for hours on end with less stress and fatigue on the head and the eyes, do you think that you could acclimate to spending most of your waking hours in a virtual reality Ready Player One type situation? That's the question for today, guys. Now, in our chat, we've got Hillary, KY Redhead. We got Megara, who famously beat me in a game on yesterday's show. We have Duncan, who goes by Tad on most of our stuff here. And we have Thray as well. So all four of them are in the chat. I've got KY at the top of my list. So, Hillary, would you like to go first?
Sure. So I am not like a huge fan of the Meta conglomerate right now because I just had an extremely frustrating experience with messaging with one of my customers where she was messaging me through Facebook, but it was showing up in my Instagram Messenger. And so I was replying in Instagram Messenger, which she never checks. And so she wasn't getting my messages. And neither one of us realized that until like 2 weeks after this was happening. So I'm already a little peeved at the whole Meta thing. My dual answer is I hate the idea of virtual reality stuff. We homeschool and we're very, I don't want to say counterculture because that has a particular meaning, but we're not huge put hands in the tech in the hands of kids, tech all the time people. We're big book people. We're big experience people. And so that's one thing. But I will say from the perspective of someone with depression and anxiety, it would be very easy to exist in a false reality and allow that to become my everyday. Not just like me personally, but just saying as if you have a reality that you want to escape from, or if you have any type of non-neurotypical or, neurotransmitter issues, that might be something that could be destructive because we were designed to live in community with actual people in real life. And I think that would be too easy to become a slippery slope. Just me personally.
All right. Who wants to jump in next here?
Jump off that and just say I completely agree with what KY said. That, like, as someone who has been in that situation where I've just wanted to escape, having even with just online communities, you can get so sucked into them and you just miss out on that, like, real in-person interaction. And with everything been going on with the pandemic and the quarantining, I'm seeing, like, with my students and a lot of people I know, just like getting really sucked into a virtual reality and missing out on those in real life relationships and the ability to even bond with each other in a way where I'm seeing my students struggle to work out conflict via in person. They'd rather do it over the phone, or really have a relationship in person. They'd rather all do it virtually. And it's just really sad to me to see that. So I don't think I could do it. And I think it's really dangerous to keep pushing it into a world that's already so addicted to technology.
Thank you for that. Tad, Duncan, what do you think?
Okay, so Snow Crash. I have not read the book yet, but I love dystopian future stuff like 1984, stuff like that. Snow Crash is about people who live in a cement jungle. So the whole earth is just cement buildings. There's no life left. And how people escape is to go to the meta, which is explained in this book. And I can't remember what year it came out, 1990 something. So in that, we're going to see the same results. and we've seen more of the same results type of thing. We've seen higher corrosion rates on hikes and different sunflower patches, things like this, where people are more prioritizing how they look in certain areas, and they lose touch with the natural environment that we are already put into. Same thing with socialization. The percentage of social anxieties and social interaction is like through the roof. Like, I don't. How it's sorry, it's really tough because I like conclusions, and so people nowadays do not conclude conversations, and you sit there like, okay, are we done? Like, do I need to stay here for a little bit more? And we lose that in touchness of the finalities and that things have purpose in like tangibility. So that those are some things that are downhill. The positive side would be the being able to interact more with the world, and that's the only thing that would be cool.
All right. And Thray, what do you think?
Three completely disagrees with everyone. I'm just kidding.
Thray is in a simulation right
I
now.
gained that reputation. Is that what goes on? I feel bad.
No, that's not what I'm saying at all. But it is kind of what I'm hoping for, just so that there's somebody on the opposite side of the fence. Not
don't
because
worry.
I feel
I
that
will-
way.
I do have a couple, devil's advocate points to just point out.
Okay.
But I will admit, I am the one who had someone expose me to a wonderful anime, or at least they thought was wonderful, because I am not an anime person for the most part. It is an acquired taste for me. I was
Agreed.
exposed to Sword Art Online and another one called Log Horizon. And the concept in both of these was the idea that you would have individuals enter the VR-like world and be stuck there because it could physically kill you. And the problem is that that spooked me. So I'm just going to admit my bias and say that spooked me a lot, to the point that Meg had to hold my hand and go, "It's okay. We can play this game about deactivating a bomb, and it's not going to hurt." But I will be real with you. In addition to the things that have already been said, which I feel are all valid, there's a lot of health concerns with the technology in general. It makes a lot of weight on the front of your face. If you thought people had trouble adapting to masks, let's put a headgear on you. And also, if you have any imperfect vision or hearing or inner ear issues, you are not going to last an 8-hour school day, or whatever they would implement in that potential situation. I mean, as it is, I've heard tales from multiple people. Admittedly, 2 of them are here in the fact that we have our wonderful teacher resources, just already previously speaking, expressing concerns about their students in a virtual situation. I mean, out east, they've got mental health hospitals for those that have become so addicted to the virtual reality and the online community that, I mean, that's probably why we've got China doing the whiplash of limiting gaming and other uses to try to limit those communities. But we've also seen the benefits. I mean, this online community has been a big benefit through the pandemic, and Tokyo is also implementing robot technology to allow those that are paralyzed to engage with the real world via an online interaction, some of that being VR based. That way they can potentially have a job in a situation they would otherwise not. I feel like those are potentially good uses, but they would also have to be highly monitored because those individuals, for the most part, already have a situation where their doctor is heavily involved in their care. And so introducing a technology that would have additional side effects to them, it's one of those, well, they're already in a bad spot, so how can this make it worse? But the problem is as Tad mentioned, there's many, many sci-fis and things that express the same thing, that anxieties, those other emotions and other triggers that become the slippery slope of, well, they're already hurting, so why not? And that's kind of the problem, is we are very capable humans of creating things and getting very, very good at it. However, should we is always the problem that we have, because we are curious beings.
Can we is not always the question. Should we? That's what we should be talking about.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And in this particular case, yeah, I'm going to vote no, especially even just immediate things like it is a nightmare for people with imperfect vision or inner ear stuff.
Well, that is those two things are supposed to, and the front heavy aspect that you mentioned of the goggles. Those are all things that are supposed to be being addressed in this new headgear that they are trying to come out with in the next year.
They say that every time.
Yeah. But I mean, looking at the prototype that they posted, it's definitely not like the Oculus. It doesn't have a giant, basically theater that you're strapped to your face. Like, it looks more like closer to headphones for your eyes, and that kind of bulk, not as big as what we currently see. If
and
they're able to pull it off.
My thoughts. Does it have a blue light filter in it?
Right.
How does that affect the experience? How does this exposure to extended screen time affect your brain's ability to monitor day and night?
Right.
I mean, we already have a situation where people genuinely have their brains totally confused of what time of year it is, because they're not exposed to enough far red and red radiation to tell anymore that not every day is noon on a summer day.
Oh, and melatonin levels on average have dropped immensely in the last
100%.
few years.
There's okay, I'm gonna stop.
No, please go. This is what this is for.
Yeah, this is
Okay.
this also involves Christianity as well. I saw Life Church. What was it? About a month ago.
Yep.
They did their very first metaverse church.
Yeah, they're starting. Well, technically, it's not metaverse at this point. Metaverse doesn't officially exist yet, but it is a virtual reality. And there's also another VR church that's been going for a few years now. That Mo and I actually covered just a few months before we got folded into LTN on our show, that essentially kind of started as people that couldn't go out, couldn't go to, can't leave their home, but has grown into a big community of people that just attend church online. And we had that whole discussion of, is that really the same thing? Especially faith-wise, is it the same thing to be building your entire church life around something that's only in virtual reality, that only exists in virtual reality? But whether that's the case or not, like you said, with Life Church, and of course, I'm sure many people are going to jump on the bandwagon, it's going to be a reality.
Yeah.
I feel like I cut
all
you off.
honesty, I feel like that's the same argument as when churches started getting on the radio waves. It's just a different type of church, and it has a different audience.
Yeah.
But just like Billy Graham would minister to people and then say, okay, you've heard, you've received, now go get in a community.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
That
Agreed.
is the thing, and that is the line. And just as folks that absorb radio church, there's for as long as there's been a way to distance oneself from community yet still try to participate, humans have been trying to do it. That's just my easiest technology grab, but I'm sure there were ways before that where
But at the same
People
time, they
just
can.
don't plug in.
These kind of things can also serve as catalyst for future connection to a real church. You know, there's
absolutely.
quite a few people.
That's
Yeah.
my
Yeah,
point.
quite a few people
Is-
that are disconnected
there's
from the
plenty,
church.
There's plenty of those that go and plant seeds, but once they're starting to sprout, they need to be cultivated and they need
Absolutely.
to go someplace.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the thing. It's like we're talking about the metaverse church, but there were plenty of. I didn't go to one. It's not my style, but there was plenty of stories of Minecraft churches where chaplains were building little Minecraft chapels in their little servers and inviting their congregates to meet in a voice chat and do church that way. It was different, but it was a thing.
Yeah.
World of Warcraft as well had a similar, but all of those moments were, like we're saying, points of like reaching out to people, just like LTN reaching out to people in their culture, in their comfort, and meeting them where they are at.
Right. And I'm sure LTN will get involved with the metaverse as it grows, no doubt, because that's going to be a place full of nerds.
So has anybody else been reminded of Wall-E and the civilization on the ship with this whole conversation? Because like all those people were living independently in pods, somehow still procreating, somehow still, experiencing different parts of the ship, but all very isolated, but not realizing that they were isolated, not realizing what they were missing because that was normal until they got shaken out of their virtual reality. And I don't know, it just makes me think about that.
That's a valid point. In fact, all these things that we brought up, all the dystopian future and living in virtual reality, augmented reality things that have been sci-fi stories, nearly all of them paint this as this probably shouldn't have happened.
Well, forgive me. Is there a utopia story that ends well?
Good point. You have a good point. But
Heaven.
Thank you, KY. I thought that too.
But like,
I was waiting for somebody to jump on.
but like
I got you, sister.
It's a little more than a story, though, right?
But Meg in the chat brought up that funny quote of sci-fi author, "Don't do this thing, scientist, let's do this thing." Like that's like that's kind of where we're at with a lot of these things. But it does seem like this is an inevitable future. It seems like everything's tilting this way. We just saw Xbox, Microsoft make it that giant purchase of Activision and Blizzard this past week with, they stated, the explicit goal of trying to corner a market on the metaverse here when it comes to gaming. Because, of course, gaming is going to be a huge part of what the metaverse will become. But it's almost certainly going to grow in every sector of society over the next probably decade. Like, it's going to happen a lot faster than I think any of us are going to be ready for. And the way it was described in one of the videos that I saw is like in the way that we think going to the library is outdated when you can just Google it. Now we're going to eventually get to the point where we can just think of something and be immersed in it in the metaverse. And having to go and type out a search term is going to feel so outdated.
I'm offended.
I put a
Going
little
to the
pause
library
in
is
that
not
because-
outdated.
Absolutely not.
My personal feelings are hurt. I have been attacked. Go ahead,
Look,
Three.
go.
I never go to Google
Get 'em.
and find all my books stacked up in weird places and the Google person yelling saying, "Hey, Google's closed today," while we reorganize everything by color and height.
But Mo, you can look
But
forward
servers
to
crash all the time.
Yeah, Google's down today because our server crashed because we had so many DDoS attacks or whatever it's called.
At least you can still open a book. It might take you a little bit longer to find it,
From
but you can
9 to 4 every weekday.
And the information in a book is not going to disappear if somebody stops paying for the address
so
or the server space.
if
This
Mo's,
is not the crowd to argue about anti-book with. Let me just warn you ahead of time, because
if Mo's
you're definitely
library
barking up the wrong trees here.
goes to the metaverse, her work will be an eye shot. An eye shot.
Mo's face. Oh, so funny.
You better watch out because also in the metaverse she'll be shooting you with the guns that are in her eyes. So
Again,
Some of our friends know all about my eye shot, okay? They will tell you. They will warn you.
Oh,
it is not
gracious.
something you want to mess with.
You don't want to
oh
be
no,
within eye shot.
you're
of
a
Mo.
librarian. You scare me.
Okay, you know what? I do need to add, though, something that I have just learned very recently that I find mind-blowing is that teenagers today, like, we think of Google. We think, just go search it on Google. Easy. Do you know teenagers today don't fully understand Google? I've told my kids, I've told several other kids, type it in Google, figure it out. And they're like, what do you mean type it in Google?
Well, if you think
Your
about
question, what you want to find out, type it in but what do I put? Your question.
Right? The whole
well, if you think about it,
Alexa, how do I
have the-
Google?
Exactly. Sorry, Thray. Thray has been trying to say something, Matt.
Sorry. What's up?
No, it's okay. I can't see any bubble, so I don't get a cue. Sorry. If you think about it, we have the building blocks of, I think most of us here were at least at some point given the, quote unquote, old-fashioned tools of, okay, this is how you look up something in an encyclopedia.
Yes.
And while
Yeah.
we don't do that, it taught us to critical think of what keywords we were looking for.
Yep.
And then that information is what we would enter into a Google search. So yeah, the process became so much easier. But that process of critical thinking to come up with, okay, if I can't figure out that word, then what word can I use? Or what words were around it that I can find?
Yeah.
Those are tools that we were given the building blocks for because we grew up as the technology grew up.
Yep.
But the next generation, it's just, talk
there.
to it magic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
And with that, we also have lost a lot of the in-house education when it comes to utilizing of the internet. Like, when's the last time a kid has gone through internet courtesy, or how to look things up on Google, how to use parentheses on Google search to actually.
well, Google is spending a ton of money on making ads for that very purpose right now. I'll tell you that much. Try to
At
watch
our house, we
anything on
have.
YouTube.
Yeah, so on PBS when we were kids was cyber. What was it called?
Cyber Kids.
Cyber Kids,
my
and it
goodness.
went on about what not to do with strangers and how do you keep your password safe and things like this
no,
in
never
a
mind. I'm
fun
thinking of a different
animated
thing.
way with the. Oh my goodness! The guy that played the parrot from Aladdin.
Gilbert Godfrey?
Oh,
Gilbert Gottfried
no,
played
you're
the bird.
Oh, no. Cyber Chase.
Cyber Chase. There we go. Thank you. Love that show. Just couldn't remember the name.
I thought
Anyway,
that was a math show. But
Sorry,
anyway.
I only know about that because of my kids, though, so I can't really be like, that's my childhood.
highly educational, but also brought together some important fundamentals when interacting with the internet. And that is something that is completely lost because we give our 10-year-olds a phone and then we do not have any
No
sort
worse,
of...
we give our 2-year-olds a phone.
Yeah, we give our 2-year-olds a phone and then have no way of like disciplining their action through that course. So yeah. Anyway, okay.
Well, another thing is, I'm sorry. KY, did you want to talk?
No, I was just thinking my kids don't have devices, and that actually came up in their homeschool today, part of a co-op project. But that's, I know I'm in the minority, so that's okay.
There's a reason Steve Jobs did not give his own children his technology until they were of a majority. There's a reason.
Drugs.
If the man did not give his own children screen time, while the rest of us were buying it all up, just think about that. The other piece is, what's also interesting is there's this gap, because while we also have an odd transition between a generation that has some internet knowledge savvy and, a younger generation that has also got some, there's this in-between education period that I keep hearing about, where elementary school teachers will come up to me and go, "Did you know this about internet safety?" And I'll go, "Yeah." Well, they were explaining it to these kindergartners that, at the end of your email, do you see that name? If the name isn't yours, you don't own the email. That company does. Oh, that makes so much sense. Yeah, that's why Hillary Clinton got in trouble. And
Not enough
encryption
trouble,
you
in
have
my
to
opinion.
pay
but-
for with Google. And why you don't just drop all your personal information online. Just anyway.
Yeah, that's a whole nother discussion when it comes to what the metaverse is going to look like when it comes to data and scams and all that kind of stuff. But we don't have time for that today, because that's going to wrap up our discussion here. Thank you, Hillary, Meg, Duncan, and Thray for joining us for this discussion.
Thanks for having us.
Y'all are always,
This
Have
was
a
fun.
lovely evening.
always awesome.
Always awesome. Love y'all.
Love you.
Goodbye.
Come on.